All right, hosted back to you. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
UGTV will go live in about 30 seconds. We're live.
Are we ready to roll?
Yes,
Mayor,
sir.
we're ready, sir.
All right, thank you. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some commissioners, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom or by phone. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak, so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. And due to COVID-19 requirements, the public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting. Those comments will be included in the record of the meeting. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll, call the meeting to order.
Roll call. Mark Lee.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Mayor Alvey.
Here. Thank you. Our invocation will be given by Commissioner Harold Johnson of Faith Deliverance Church of God in Christ.
Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we are so thankful that you have brought us together once again as the governing body of this great city and community. As we are celebrating Black History Month, we ask, oh God, that you would give us a mind and a sense of those whose lives were affected as we built this great country. We thank God that we've brought us a long way, but we have a long way to go. We are continuing to be mindful of those, Lord, that are continuing to deal with segregation and dealing with issues of injustice and impropriety. We ask, oh God, that you bring us all together and as brothers and sisters to be mindful of those that are affected by racial discrimination and injustice, especially in the Black community. May we all, Lord, unite in prayer so that the Spirit of God can help us to find true healing and true renewal, we pray. In the name of Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Clerk, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mayor, there are. There was a blue sheet submitted. And under the announcements heading, there were two items. Item number one was a health order update. Item number two was recognition for Bruce Newby under the election commissioner. Under the regular consent agenda, there were two new items. Item number three was a plat for the Turner Logistics Center, third plat. Item number four was a plat for the Turner Logistics Center, fourth plat. And under the administrator's agenda, there was one new item, which was item number 5, resolution for the memorandum of understanding with Plumbers Local Union number 8, sir. That was all.
Thank you. So I'll go first to the announcements. The Commission, I know, received a copy of the press release communicating that we have now lifted the time restriction on bars and restaurants, that they can close, continue to operate to the hours that they would normally operate. Again, with the stipulation and the expectation, and we have their commitment to continue to follow the mitigation measures of mask wearing, social distancing, because the data does show that we have not had a cluster or an outbreak due to those hours. And so we have loosened those restrictions, but again, we depend upon and have seen great compliance by our bars and restaurants. Next, as the clerk stated, our announcements, I'll turn over to Administrator Bach for the recognition of Mr. Newby.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Bach, County Administrator. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be able to recognize Mr. Newby, who has served as our election commissioner for the past several years. Mr. Newby is with us this evening, and I see he has his camera turned on. Thank you for being here, Bruce. Bruce was born in Topeka, Kansas, and he moved to Kansas City, Kansas at the age of 7 years old. He was a graduate of Washington High School in 1964. He graduated from the United States Military Academy, West Point, in 1970, which is a Bachelor of Science in Engineering. Then he graduated again from the American University in Washington, D.C. in 1977, the Master of Science in Public Administration. He had military service in the Kansas National Guard in 1965 and 66, West Point 66 through 70, and the U.S. Army in 1970 through 1990, where he was in the infantry, airborne ranger, and military police. Worked with the senior civil engineer for the URS Corporation, primarily on homeland security projects. And while one thing he did do projects here in Kansas City area, he also served in many places across the United States, like in Des Moines or in San Francisco. I also noted in this that he was a security planning for a rebuilding of the World Trade Center in New York City. Mr. Newby was appointed as our election commissioner in 2006 by Kansas Secretary of State Ron Thornburg at the time. He served under 4 different Kansas secretaries of state. He successfully conducted 46 different elections, which is quite an achievement. He modernized our voting by improving, providing new voting systems, and guaranteed that physical paper ballot to everyone to make sure that they could see where they voted after they did that. And he established strict accountability for management of resources and budget. Bruce and his wife, Barbara, have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. And I will say it has been a pleasure and an honor working with you through these years, Bruce. I think at this time, if you would like to say a few words, Mr. Newby, you're welcome to.
Unmute. There we go. Now I can talk. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate the acknowledgement. I regard the 15 years I was able to spend as the election commissioner of Wyandotte County as being a very special gift. When I started out, those many years ago in 1964, I committed my life to public service. And throughout my life, whether it was in the military or serving as a civil engineer or finally ending up as the election commissioner for Wyandotte County, I regard no higher calling than that of being able to serve your fellow citizens here in the United States of America. God and country are of paramount importance to me. Some of the things that drove my life were, one of the things I learned as a cadet: do not lie, cheat, or steal. That's good words to live by. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. And the cadets took it one step further, and that is don't tolerate those who do lie, cheat, or steal. My class motto when I graduated in 1970 was to serve with integrity, and I hope that I have fulfilled that. I believe that I have, and I believe that the legacy that I leave with the election office is certainly very strong. I understand my replacement is going to be sworn in tomorrow, and I had the privilege of being able to train him to make sure that he was ready for the job. Some of the things that just made up what I did, you heard the laundry list of things that I did and was responsible for, but some of the things that got left out were the overseas assignments in Thailand, Korea, and Germany, 2 assignments to the Pentagon. One of those assignments, I was responsible for what's called the Military Working Dog Program, and we ran all of the bomb dogs, bomb detector dogs, narcotics detector dogs, and what's called a patrol dog. The significant thing of the bomb dogs is while I was there at the Pentagon, I was responsible for coordinating the response of bomb dog teams to a particularly bad period of time of terrorism in Germany. It goes back to the era of the attack by terrorists on the Olympic Games. There were was a lot of terrorist activity in Germany at the time. So I regard that as a very important thing that I did. Another one that I want to capture is the work that I did in Korea. When I got to Korea, the military, U.S. military, had a history of incidents with the North Koreans on the DMZ, and we had been on the losing end of many of those engagements. I was given the mission to go up to the DMZ and make sure that the people there were properly trained so that we could defend ourselves against those attacks that were directed against U.S. soldiers, and as well as the Korean soldiers that served with us. I am glad to say that the training was very successful. And during my tenure there in Korea, we never lost another fight. The significant accomplishments, I think, I point to the presidential elections during my tenure as election commissioner as being of the greatest significance, particularly the elections in 2008, 2016, and most recently in 2020. As an aside, the election that we had in February of 2013 was especially fun. If you all remember, there was we call it the Blizzard of Oz, but there was a horrendous snowstorm, and we had to conduct an election in the throes of that paralysis that came from being in that snowstorm. And in fact, there were a lot of voters that did vote. There were also a lot of voters that didn't go out to vote. And I was accused by one candidate of making it snow so his people couldn't vote for him. Well, my retort to that is, if I could make it snow, trust me, I would have made it not snow. It was that bad a situation. The 2020 election, obviously, being done during the pandemic. If you'd asked me last year about this time whether or not whether elections were even doable, I would have told you no. I just would not have known how we would do it. But I have a great staff. We figured it out and we got it done. And I regard the 2020 elections as being the most successful elections that we ran during my tenure. I thank everybody in the unified government who partnered with us over the years, and there were many of you. I especially appreciate the work of the unified government commissioners to make things possible, not only from a budgetary standpoint or equipment standpoint, but also just in terms of personal relationships and the value with which we were able to hold each other. I thank you for your integrity. I would best wishes to you all. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time, the 15 years that I was able to spend with the unified government. Thank you.
Mr. Nibby, on behalf of the commission and the residents of Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County, we appreciate your service to our nation, to our community, and we know that you will still be around and that you'll still be contributing to God, and to country, and to Wyandotte County. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we now move to the clerk's statement. We have two parts to our meeting: planning and zoning, followed by regular commission. I'll ask the clerk to read the statement required by state law governing the planning and zoning portion of our meeting, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Alvey. We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor CEO David Alvey, Mayor or Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large District Number 1, Commissioner Tom Burrows, at-large District Number 2, Commissioner Gayle Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Murguia, District 3, Commissioner excuse me, Commissioner Ramirez, District 3, Commissioner Harold Johnson, District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner James Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before the commission has 3 options. It can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. Number 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with a statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the planning and zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or others, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all of the items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to raise your hand and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If you contacted the UG Clerk's office, that item will be set aside by the UG Clerk on your behalf. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone who is joining us by Zoom or by phone to mute your phone when not speaking to avoid background noise, so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum of 3 minutes to state your views. This is your time to raise your hand. When your name is called, please state your name and city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Yes, can I just make it simple by saying anything that has to do with Turner Logistics? I've been in conversation with them because there's a long list. And then also the an ordinance for rezoning 9th Street number 2, and another ordinance on rezoning for on number 10. And let's see, I think that's, let me look. Yep, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands raised, we may proceed.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Under the planning and zoning consent agenda, change of zone application. Number 1, COZ 0008, NP Turner Industrial District LLC. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to MP2 Planned General Industrial District for additional property for the Turner Logistics Center for warehousing, distribution, and light manufacturing businesses at 915 North 69th Street. Recommended for approval. Special use permit applications. Number 1, SP 2020-100, Wendy Orozco. Special use permit for a car audio installation shop at 1315 State Avenue. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item number 2, SP-2020-105, Montserrat Perez Mera. Special use permit for a shipping container at 3500 North 32nd Terrace. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Vacation applications. Item number 1, VAC 2020-001, Sean Coffer with Scannell Properties LLC. Vacation of right-of-way at 9700 Leavenworth Road, east and west of the main entrance. Recommended for approval. Item number 2, VAC 2020-002-SP Bennett Lake Development LLC. Vacation of right-of-way at 9700 Leavenworth Road. Recommended for approval. Plan review application. Item number 1, PR 2020-035, Kurt Yoder with BHC Roads. Preliminary and final plan review, revising previously approved drive entry to Tidal Wave Auto Spa Car Wash at 10762 Parallel Parkway. Recommended for approval. Master plan amendment. Item number 1, MPL 2021-002, NP Turner Industrial LLC. Master Plan Amendment from Low Density Residential and Mixed Use to Industrial at 915 North 69th Street. Recommended for approval. Miscellaneous ordinances. The following ordinance formalized previous commission approval. Item number 1. An ordinance rezoning property at 4520 and 4600 Parkview Avenue from R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District. Recommended for approval. Number 2, an ordinance rezoning property at 615 North 69th Street to MP2 Plan General Industrial District. Recommended for approval. Item 3, an ordinance vacating a portion of a street at 1 Woodsweather Road and 1R Woodsweather Road. Recommended for approval. Item 4, an ordinance authorizing a special use permit for continuation of the temporary use of land to park a dump truck at 1619 North 51st Street. Recommended for approval for 1 year. Item number 5, an ordinance authorizing a special use permit to keep 3 goats at 7640 Taromie Avenue. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item number 6, an ordinance authorizing a home occupation special use permit for arts and crafts and storage at 2909 North 74th Street. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 7, an ordinance authorizing a special use permit for the temporary use of land for the continuation of an office trailer at 6721 Kansas Avenue. Recommended for approval for 1 year. Number 8, an ordinance authorizing a special use permit for a short-term rental at 611H North 6th Street. Recommended for approval for 1 year. Number 9, an ordinance authorizing a special use permit for a temporary trailer to take employee temperatures during inclement weather at 100 Osage Avenue. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Number 10, an ordinance rezoning property at 6863 State Avenue from C1 Limited Business District to CP-3 Planned Commercial District. Recommended for approval. Number 11, an ordinance rezoning property at 1879 Village West Parkway from CP-2 Planned General Business District to RP-6 Planned High Rise Apartment District. Recommended for approval. Those are all of the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission, the county administrator, or public wish to set aside any item on the planning and zoning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the planning and zoning consent agenda will be voted on by one vote to follow the recommendations of the planning commission. Commissioner Townsend?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you. Commissioner Gayle Townsend, District 1. Mayor, Commissioners, I wish to set aside the petition SP 2020-105. The applicant is Montserrat Perez Mera.
Thank you. Clerk, have we received any requests from the public to set aside an item?
Mayor, we
requests from the public have been received.
I'm sorry, I did not catch that.
The clerk's office has not received any requests from the public to set aside.
Thank you. All right, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the planning and zoning consent agenda.
McKiernan, move to approve all items as submitted.
Johnson,
Ramirez.
second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
roll call. Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to item SP 2020-105. I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Again, this is a special use permit request in the northeast area, just off 32nd Terrace. And I'll file through here real quick. Essentially, the applicant is looking for an SUP for a shipping container. At the Planning Commission hearing earlier this month, they received approval of from the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance to have a, an accessory structure without a primary structure. It's essentially a vacant lot that the applicant uses as a second place where they can essentially go outside and be in nature. They do live elsewhere in the unified government. They are part of our conditions of approval as a part of this project were to clean up the property and maintain its cleanliness. The Planning Commission specifically made it clear that this is this approval is for 2 years, but it's for 2 years to find a permanent solution. They essentially sent the notice that this would not be recommended for approval in another 2 years. And so the applicant has 2 years to find a permanent solution to a shipping container for this site if they want to continue to use the property as proposed. We also had a condition of approval that the shipping container be placed on an improved service. So on this gravel driveway would be sufficient moving forward. We just want to make sure. We did have some back and forth with the applicant. They provided some information about the shipping container. This is it, and we do recommend approval. I would also just very quickly note, we didn't have any letters of support or opposition. There were a couple of neighbors who attended the meeting at the Planning Commission and brought up issues related to the keeping of animals, of which this SUP does not include anything about the keeping of animals. So I wasn't sure if there was confusion. We didn't chalk that up as opposition ultimately because it was irrelevant or not germane to the case. But with that, we do recommend approval of this SUP for 2 years.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Is she present? Okay, Des, would you like to please state your name and address for the record?
Hi, this is Montserrat Perez Mera at 3500 North 32nd Terrace.
Yes, and could you just state what your request is?
My only request is to put a shipping container on the land.
Okay. And is there anything else you'd like to say to advocate for your application?
No, just that we don't have any animals on there and the property is and always has been cleaned. We always keep it update with everything that the city wants us to do with it. And we just do work around. And there was a fee for $125. We went to the treasurer's office and it was not open or anything. And we called to contact with the lady who does that department, and she's currently not in. That she won't be back until the 19th. So we don't know how to do that payment.
We can get to you. If this moves forward, we can get back to you on that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. If there's anything else you'd like to add?
No, that'll be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now open the public hearing. Has the clerk received any notification from the public? Someone who would wish to express their comments in favor of this item?
Mayor, the clerk has not received anything.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public present who would like to speak in favor of this?
Mayor, we have Warnell Henson in the attendees. Should I go ahead and promote him?
Well, does he want to speak in favor of this item?
I'm not sure. He has his hand raised.
If you'd like to speak in favor, he can speak now.
Mr. Henson, if you would like to make a statement, you may do so at this time.
Thank you. This is Ms. Henson, and my statement is not in favor. I'll hold until permitted.
Okay. All right. Then we'll come back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. We clearly have someone who'd like to speak in opposition. Please go ahead. Ma'am, if you want to go ahead now, and if you have comments you'd like to speak in opposition to this, please go ahead.
There we are again. Waynell Henson, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Property owner at 3457 North 33rd Terrace, Kansas City, Kansas 66104. I am speaking in opposition. We have been residents in that community since 1977. That area is just behind our house. It's the street, it's directly behind. At some point, it has been semi-residential, but in the last, I'm going to say 10 to 12 years, we as residents are very unsure of the movement in that area and exactly what these containers are for. And so as I listened to the intent with this trainer, I did hear the conversation that there would not be animals, but the use of the container is a bit ambiguous, and there is just so much activity that is unclear for us that I am in opposition for anything that we don't understand, because the what I'll consider kind of the nature of that area is changing quite a bit, and even the traffic and just being unclear about what the activity is in a very heavily wooded area, it really is very uncomfortable. So that is my opposition.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Have we received any other notification from the public in opposition?
We have Ernest White.
Okay.
Mr. White, you may go ahead and proceed with your comments.
Okay, my name is Ernest White, and I think I'm a neighbor of Miss Henson. Those containers, to me, they're not really clear on what they plan on doing with them. And I noticed it's a neighbor right next to me that put one in. I can hear a whole bunch of bumping and animals and different things. It sounds like it's animals and different things in those containers, whatever it is. I hear it late at night, and they got track loaders. They got track loaders out here right now, moving stuff all through the when the bad weather. They've been out here just plowing and doing different things, getting way ahead of you guys, way ahead of what I could see. But you know, and it's always animals. And you know, I got plenty of pictures in my phone with animals all through here. And they start out saying no animals, but I think they went down in the ruins, and they had almost like a petting zoo before you get up to the graveyard. Well, they rerouted them and shipped them out somewhere else, and that's where I'd like to keep my neighborhood a family atmosphere, not with no animals and stuff like that. When I moved out here, I didn't have horses right next door to me. I sit on my back deck and
Mr. White, you have 1 minute remaining.
okay. And so I would like to just keep, you know, if they want to build on the property and be neighbors like that, but all this shipping container stuff, they're never clear on what to do with that. So I'm not for the shipping container stuff or animals. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition?
There are no other hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, I will now close the public hearing. Ms. Roscoe, would you like to respond to some of the questions and concerns that were raised by those in opposition?
Yeah.
Montserrat?
Yes.
if you would like to speak to respond to some of the comments by those who are in opposition.
We actually never had animals on the land, and we try to keep as calm and clean as we can. We've never really done anything. You might be talking like about the neighbors. Like we always try to satisfy everybody, and we don't harm or do any of that. But if the container is approved, he is more than happy to come by and look inside the container and see if there's no animals. The only thing that it's going to be in the container are recreational vehicles. That's about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
I'll now close the public hearing. Do any members of the commission have any questions or comments? Commissioner Townsend, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. This is Gayle Townsend. I do, Commissioner Townsend, District 1. My request to the commission is to move this item to the agenda for next month so that I have the opportunity to talk with the applicant in more detail about her request. Ms. Perez-Mera, you may not be aware that this commission over the last 7+ years while I've been on has moved away from the wholesale approval of requests for the use of these containers. It's not really just about what goes in them. It's the fact that these things tend to be unsightly, and this commission has and is doing its best to make all of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas more aesthetically pleasing. What you have asked for is to put a shipping container in a residential area. So I would love the opportunity to talk with you more about what your real need is, which you did not really get into here, and to look at some other alternatives to satisfy whatever your need is. You may also not be aware that the location you are in is very close to and or near an area of historic interest and development. And the commission has dealt with some requests for planning and zoning within the last year, and we successfully responded to an applicant who wanted to put some animals near one of these historic sites, and we were able to come up with something else. They let him have the animals somewhere else. So what I'd like to do, not saying you're asking for animals, but to look at what your real needs are, and to possibly come up with some other option for you that is satisfactory, that does not necessarily include the use of a container. So that is my motion to the commission, that we table this item for 1 month to allow me the opportunity to speak more in detail with the applicant. Thank you.
Commissioner Mike Kane, second.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Philbrook.
Yes, I do have a concern beyond what Commissioner Townsend has said. What recreational vehicles? What are we talking about? Because when you start talking about recreational vehicles, I think about four-wheelers and kinds of things that make all kinds of noise and tear up the ground. So, you know, that's also a concern of mine. You know, where would they be if and we already have some problems in some other areas with people being abusive with that. So I just thought I would bring that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
You're going to end up turning left
Philbrook,
on east.
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye. I
Johnson.
feel like we have two.
Aye.
Go straight ahead and there's a
Kane.
grocery store and a liquor store on the left.
we've been here.
I think we have.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
We have.
There's fine foods.
we've been.
Somebody needs to shut off their microphone because we're getting to hear all the background from it. I don't know who's going to the liquor store, but you guys need to.
Thank you. That concludes the planning and zoning portion of our tonight's meeting. We'll now move to the regular portion of our agenda. Does any member of the commission or county administrator wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
McKiernan, move to approve all as submitted.
Johnson, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Mark Lee.
Aye.
Walters.
Quiet.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. We have 4 items under the administrator's agenda. Items 1 through 3 will be heard together, but separate votes will be taken for each item. I'll turn it over to Mr. Bach.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission, Doug Bach, County Administrator. Tonight, we have our annual municipal bond sales and note series. Those items were placed on the agenda at the beginning of this week, and the sales were actually conducted today. This evening, we have our finance team here, Ms. Von Ashen and our Chief Financial Officer, and Debbie Johnson, our Deputy Chief Financial Officer, are here this evening to present on this item. Kathleen or Debbie?
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Debbie Johnson, Deputy CFO. We are here tonight to talk about the sale results of our bond and note pricing today. There are 3 items on your agenda, and this presentation will cover all of those. I'm going to start out just giving you the sale results, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen Von Hatchen, our CFO, to talk a little bit about the credit rating report. Hold on just a second. I'm trying to get my screen to move. There we go. Okay, so just maybe to start off with the timeline, back on February 12th, we did hold rating agency presentations with both Standard & Poor and Moody's. And on February 18th, we did receive those ratings. I will note that both agencies affirmed our current ratings this year. And as I said, Kathleen is going to talk a little bit about that report when we get here in a few slides. Today, we're at the bond and note pricing, and the plan is to close on March 25th, and then we will use the proceeds to pay off the 2020 temp note issue. So we'll just start out with the pricing that we had today. We had 3 series going. The first one is the Series A General Obligation Bonds. It was a $44.3 million issue. The interest rate is 2.05% with a maturity going through August of 2041. There were 8 bids, and the winning bid went to Wells Fargo. I will also just note for comparison, in 2020, we had a very similar sized issue, and the interest rate was 2.13%. So we were actually below the rate that we got last year. The second series that we had is a $50 million temp note. The interest rate on that is 0.3%, and it's a 1-year temp note. So the maturity is April of 2022. There were 10 bids, and the winning bid went to Morgan Stanley. Just for comparison, last year, we had a similar sized temp note issue, and the interest rate for 1 year was 1.15%. The third series that we had was a Series A PBC issue, a small $1.8 million issue. The interest rate was 1.97%, And it's a 15-year maturity, so the date is August of 2036. We had 2 bids for this issue, and the winning bid went to Huntington Securities. Last year in 2020, we did 3 small issues, and the rates for those were all in the 3% range. It's just kind of details some of the larger projects that are in each of the temp note and the bonds. There's street projects, facilities, as well as sewer and stormwater projects on each of the temp note and general obligation bonds. The courthouse, or the PBC issue was for improvements at the courthouse and the adult jail facility. Just also listing future financings potential. The temp notes that we issued today, we expect to finance over the next 3 years as general obligation. And also we could have new projects coming up each year in the $13 to $15 million range. The next 2 slides, just some detail on the temp note issue and the bonds. This one is the temp notes. It's a $50 million issue. 17 million is general obligation, or I'm sorry, governmental projects, and 32.7 million is the sewer and storm projects. Down at the bottom of the screen, we did do just kind of broke out the new money so that you can see for each project, for each series. We had a total of 41.8 million in new money issued. 14.3 million of that was general obligation, and 27.5 was storm and sewer, sanitary sewer. And then 7.8 million of that was refunded from the previous year's temp notes. This is the general obligation bonds. The par amount on this one was 44.3 million. 28.4 million was governmental debt, and about 18.3 million was sewer and stormwater. We did have some new money in this issue. It was about 7.6 million. There were a couple of projects that were funded with new money for the bonds. And we had, the rest of it was all refunding from the previous temp notes. One thing I did want to point out is you will see the par amount is 44.3 million, but we are funding 46.7 million. Did just want to note that difference. We did have a premium on this bond issue, so the premium does go toward the project fund deposit. So the total revenues for this project were actually 47.6 million. The next 2 slides just detail out the outstanding debt that's issued. This is on the city general fund backed debt. And as you can see, we've got each of the issues. The largest is the city general obligation at 247.9 million. And then over on the side, we've listed all the other, the sewer and stormwater projects, the total sewer and stormwater debt, as well as a small PBC issue. And then the other includes, there is some debt from the public levy, as well as the electric utility. And then this next one is the Wyandotte County debt. We've got a little bit, just under 10 million in county GO, 48.6 million, that's PBC. The largest of that includes the juvenile center, which was 28 million, that was finalized last year. The facility opened in 2020. And then just about 3 million in other county debt. So that concludes my portion. I'm going to turn it over here to Kathleen Von Atchen, our CFO, and let her talk about the credit rating report.
Thank you. So each year we do make a presentation to both S&P and Moody's. It's about a 50 or 60 page or slide presentation that is very comprehensive. And it talks about all the various economic development projects that are in the pipeline, as well as our current financial performance. It reviews our financial policies and our management administration. And so very comprehensive. This year, Alan House joined us and he provided some great comments. And so it was a good visit with our rating analysts. The first was, I'm just going to give a recap of the reports they provided us. February 19th. So they overall, the positives are that they cited that we had, well, S&P gives us a AA rating and they affirmed that. They said that we have very strong management and we have strong budgetary flexibility. Our fund balance continues in the general fund continues to be at a good level. You know, we reached 20% of operating expenditures at the end of 19, and we also expect to have that as well in 2020. So those are good things. On the downside, though, they noted that there was a little bit of weakness in our budgetary performance because there is a deficit between revenues and expenditures in the governmental funds. And generally, the economy overall is weak in our area with market value per capita at $59,000, although it is advantageous that we're in a broad and diverse metropolitan statistical area. The biggest thing is that we have very weak debt and contingency liability profile. That what they mean by that is that we have a high overall debt. It's greater than 10% of our market value, and we have large pension and other post-employment retiree health payments. So those are some of the concerns that they have. Now, they did give us a few more comments. They said that they expected us to have challenges associated with COVID in the next 2 or 3 years. And so then, you know, the recession that they anticipate are going to test our management's ability to maintain very strong reserves. So they said they could lower our rating if we end up having continued structural imbalances in our budget, or that we continue to rely on reserves. So just look out for that. But overall, they do not expect to change our rating because they know that we're constantly controlling our costs. So Moody's has us at A1, which is a lower rating than Standard & Poor's AA. They said they expected us to remain at our stable outlook because they anticipate expansion in the economy and because we've bolstered our financial policies, which is really great. Thank you, Commission. And that we will continue to be committed to balancing our operations. So overall, we have improved operating reserves and we have strengthened our financial policies, just like S&P said. Some of the challenges they see is that we have outsized, you know, higher debt and pension levels, and we have extensive ongoing capital needs for citywide deferred maintenance, which actually was discussed earlier in the workshop, and that our residents' income levels are low. So some of these measures are within our control, but some of them are very difficult to change the needle on. And the next slide actually is just to give you a little bit of historical context of how interest rates are moving. This is the bond buyer interest for index for interest rates on 20-year GO bonds. And that dark line is the one that we're kind of tracking there. And you can see how it really has dropped quite a bit since the middle of 2000 or the beginning of 2019. And it dropped during the pandemic. And it's ticked up a little bit, but it's still very low. We anticipate it increasing in the future. So overall, we ask for your approval of the bond ordinance and the resolutions for this bond sale that occurred this morning. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Move to approve, Johnson.
McKiernan, second.
Thank you. We have a comment from Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Just a question, Ms. Bonachin, with regard to the entity that rated us A1. Was that a change in the status? I remember from years ago, it seems like both of these entities rated us differently. So my question is, was that a change from their rating of us in a previous year? Moody's had the Unified Government governmental issuer debt at rated at AA back in before 2015. And then in 2015, they dropped it to A1. And that's where it's been ever since. So it didn't change since 2015.
Okay, all right. I thought there was a difference for some years, so that was no change. Thank
Yeah.
you. Has that motion already been seconded?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's more so a question of clarification. Is this motion for just one or all?
Yes, it's for Series 2021-1.
Okay, okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Motion is 10-0. That motion carries.
The next item would be General Obligation Bonds, Series 2021-A. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve Johnson.
Kiernan, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Barkley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Mr. Bach, I'm confused. The next item 3 is the second supplemental lease. That's separate from the issuance of bonds.
Do we need to approve the ordinance and the resolution separately for item number 2?
I see, yes. We had approved an ordinance. The next would be a motion for the resolution. Thank you, Commissioner.
Resolution.
So I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution regarding the sale of general obligation bonds, Series 2021-A.
McKiernan, move to approve.
Johnson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Markley, Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Next item, a supplemental lease for the courthouse and adult jail facility.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the reason it's referred to as a lease is because these are lease revenue bonds. The BBC issues lease revenue bonds. That's
Okay, thank you. I entertain a motion.
Move to approve Johnson.
McKiernan, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
That vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Final item, memorandum of understanding with Plumbers Local Union Number 8, added by way of blue sheet. Mr. Bach.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Bach, County Administrator. The final item in this listing is we've reached a memorandum of understanding with our local plumbers union, Union Number 8. This is for years 20 and 21. Essentially, this does meet the terms set out by the commission that we have discussed in executive session regarding how this will go. And essentially, we're looking that we'll soon open up discussions with them for contract year 2022.
Commissioner Mike Kane, move for approval.
Johnson, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting for the evening. Thank you all for your attendance. We are adjourned. We will start the Public Building Commission meeting shortly.